Don't settle for bad socks. Get comfort and grip at an affordable price with Pure Grip Socks Pro. Choose from 18 different colors at puregripsocks.com.
So you want to buy a new pair of Nike boots in 2024. Well, you've come to the right place because we're about to rank all their top-end models from worst to best. Starting with the worst, which isn't really a bad pair of football boots, but ones that I don't think are necessarily as good as the other options in their lineup. And regardless of these rankings, please choose your boots based on your own personal preferences because that's really the only way you're ever going to end up with the best possible pair for you. And really quickly, before we get started, drop a like on the video if you enjoy this style of content. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're interested in any of the latest Nike boots, you can pick them up below their normal retail prices by way of some exclusive SR4U coupon codes via the links down below. The Nike Premier 3 is without a doubt the worst top-end football boot that Nike makes. However, it's also the epitome of everything that you need and nothing that you don't at a retail price of $120, which is less than half of all the other football boots I'll be talking about in this video. As more of a budget-friendly model, what you're going to get is something that you can't get from any of their more expensive options in a kangaroo leather upper, specifically through the forefoot and toe box area, some synthetic leather through the midfoot, a more traditional U-throat construction with standalone tongue, the old school TMO Legend 1 and 2 fold-over flap tongue that you actually have the option of cutting off if it's not something that you want on your football boots, with a sole plate and stud pattern that's pretty well as traditional as it gets without the additional bulk. They're a solid option if you're looking for something that is simple, comfortable, good looking, and of course not going to break the bank. The Nike TMO Legend 10 Elite is perhaps the best, most disappointing football boot of all time. And the reason why I say that is the Legend 10, for the first time in the history of the Nike TMO, does not offer a kangaroo leather upper. Instead, it is entirely made out of synthetic, specifically what Nike is calling Fly Touch Plus, and admittedly, it's very convincing as a synthetic variation of natural kangaroo leather. However, it's just not the same. And as we've seen from every synthetic football boot over the years that has tried to replicate natural leather, it just can't be done to the extent that I think brands would like you to believe. So if the kangaroo leather was the main draw for you to the Nike TMO line, the Legend 10 Elite is probably one worth skipping. With that said, if you were a fan of the Nike CTR 360 days and the Kangalite uppers, this is more or less the reincarnation of that, and really a football boot that I truly believe should have just been called something else rather than the Nike TMO, although I also understand that this is a line that has more notoriety than most lines of football boots do these days. From a comfort perspective, they have that tight overall wrap, but still give you that softness against your foot that again is surprisingly leather-like. Unlike a pair of leather boots, however, there's more grip to the surface than I think a lot of people might expect. There's that little bit of a dampened sensation, which again really does give this that leather-like quality. The inclusion of Nike's ACC technology, which I don't think does anything, but a lot of people really seem to like it when they print it on the upper. The TMO has that, unlike some of their other models. The central lacing system allows for good overall adjustability. The boots as a whole are way lighter than you'd expect them to be, basically speed boot light in a lot of ways, and the sole plate and stud pattern is basically classic TMO, so no major changes there, which is definitely a positive. At $240, I'd make the argument that this is the best leather alternative football boot currently on the market. However, if I were going for something from Nike, they just wouldn't be my top choice. The Nike Phantom Luna 2 Elite is an amazing pair of football boots. However, they're also an expensive pair, bearing a retail price of $285, which is $25 more than the low-cut alternative. And all you're really getting for the extra money is this mid-cut dynamic fit collar made out of the same elasticated Flyknit that we've been getting from Nike for the last 10 years now. Is there any real performance benefit to this? Contrary to popular belief, Absolutely not. There's no support, there's no structure to it. It's not designed to restrict your ankle in any way. It never has been. The only real benefit to it is if you do play on artificial grass, which you shouldn't necessarily be doing in the FG variation, pending that the collar wraps your ankle close enough, it can help with not letting those rubber pellets from getting inside of your football boots. But other than that, there really is no benefit to it other than the look and I suppose a little bit of the feel. But for me personally, when I wear a Nike mid-cut boot versus a low-cut boot, I just don't notice any difference. So for the extra 25 bucks, I'll pass. However, if you love mid-cut football boots, this is an amazing pair. The Nike Zoom Mercurial Superfly 9 Elite, also a mid-cut football boot and also an expensive one with a recent price increase. At the start of the Superfly 9's run, the retail price was $275. That has recently been bumped up to $285. The Vapor also got a price increase, but again, for an extra $25, you're getting only a mid-cut elasticated Flyknit collar that on the Superfly this year in particular is as small as it's ever been and arguably as meaningless as it's ever been. Again, amazing boots in so many different ways, but unless you absolutely must have the collar, I'd recommend just spending less money and going for the Vapor variation. Speaking of which, the Nike Zoom Mercurial Vapor 15 Elite is just a top tier speed boot for so many different reasons. And with pretty much every brand around Nike releasing their new speed boots after the Vapor 15 and Superfly 9 have launched, none of them have managed to create something that in my opinion feels quite as special as what these have on offer. For starters, they have that signature Mercurial fit, with the Vaporposit Plus upper wrapping your foot very closely, having that nice blend of structure while still maintaining a decently comfortable feel. They're incredibly locked in and responsive on your feet, making it seem like they move instantaneously with every one of your small reactions. And also, the touch on the ball is just so thin, premium, giving you that barefoot feel that, again, people want from a pair of top-end Mercurials. The shaping, I think, is a little bit less narrow than it has been in past years, which makes it a more comfortable option for a wider variety of foot types. The overall construction of the boot is remarkably lightweight. The sole plate and stud pattern is responsive as well as super aggressive in terms of digging in. And of course, the implementation of that 3/4 length zoom unit directly underneath your foot, specifically targeted in the forefoot and toe box area, really gives this that springy comfort that you simply will not find from anything else. Nike does kind of promote it as a bit of a speed element. I don't think it's going to make you faster, but having that little bit of additional cushioning underfoot only increases the overall comfort experience of the boot, and it is genuinely something that you notice with every single step. It's a great example of functional technology in a pair of football boots that isn't necessarily enhancing performance, but it is enhancing the experience. Also, $260 is the retail price. Just like the Superfly, there has been a $10 increase. So while in the early days you could pick these up for $250, if you want one of the later colorways, the retail is now $260, which of course means that I think the best football boot Nike currently has on offer is the Nike Phantom GX2 Elite, which I understand will probably be a little bit of a controversial pick because this is aesthetically not a football boot that a lot of people have warmed up to yet, although I do think this initial colorway in white, black, and gold does look quite good. And I know there's a lot of people that are not big fans of the Phantom Luna sole plate carrying over to, of course, this next generation of Phantom. However, if you saw my video on the AG variation, you can actually get the OG Nike GX sole plate on the new Phantom GX2, so definitely keep that in mind. Nonetheless, if you liked the original Phantom GX, this feels like a subtly refined variation of that I personally find to be a lot more comfortable, which when you're talking about actual improvement to a pair of football boots, you can only change so much, but if the comfort is better, that's only ever a good thing. The upper is made from Nike's grip knit material, effectively Flyknit, made from a grippy yarn, giving you very consistent grip across the entire foot without any added thickness to the upper, which is really, really cool compared to just about every other grip element that you're gonna find from other brands. They've also added some 3D texturing, more or less kind of taken from the Phantom Luna side of things. However, that is not something I would say is particularly noticeable, but it's soft, it's flexible, it's sock-like, it is incredibly comfortable and natural feeling on feet. The lacing system has been simplified with a one-piece upper construction pushed slightly to the lateral side, wrapping your foot really nicely. Maybe not the most responsive boots on the market, but they're not necessarily trying to be either. For me, it's the step-in comfort that's so impressive about the Phantom GX2 and Luna 2 for that matter, compared to the previous generation, with again the sole plate carrying over from the original Luna, which does give more aggressive traction than the original GX would have had. But again, you do have that option between this and the AG variation to give you feels and performance characteristics that are more or less on opposite ends of the spectrum, so there is something for everybody. They're also a couple grams lighter than the previous generation and bear the same $260 retail price, which of course isn't cheap. However, the Phantom GX2 is one of very few football boots that really separate themselves from everything else on the market every time you make contact with the ball. They just feel good.